Welcome back to the critique. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the recent return of the controversial character Miranda Sings was an inevitable and desperate move by Colleen Ballinger to get back to touring, but that this new phase is really defined by the immediate and frankly exploitative involvements of her family, especially the young kids.
Exactly. And that central idea that this is a coordinated family-wide play is so powerful. It's a really original angle. The research and the passion are clearly there.
Right.
But we're here to sharpen it. We see three big opportunities to really elevate this from a great commentary to an undeniable critique. So let's just jump right in with structure and flow.
Okay, so a big theme running through the material right now is how predictable Colleen's own actions were.
Yeah, that's front and center.
The author spends a lot of time establishing her desire to tour, her intense connection to the character, all things the community kind of saw coming after the toxic gossip strain situation.
Which is all true, it's necessary context, but
the most powerful part, the really new and unique claim, which is the synchronized involvement of Jessica and Christopher Ballinger using their kids for TikToks, that comes in a bit late.
it gets buried, doesn't it? For anyone who's been following this, the idea that Colleen wants validation, that she wants to tour. That's not news. We can accept that premise very quickly.
It's background noise almost.
It is. The real shock, the angle that makes this piece stand out, is the coordinated family push. By spending so much time on the predictability of her solo moves, the piece kind of buries its own lead.
So the structural problem is basically prioritizing old news over the immediate new threat.
Precisely. To maximize the impact here, the entire narrative structure just needs to be recentered. It has to focus on the Ballinger family's coordinated effort.
Because that's the most unique part of this comeback.
It's the most unique, the most immediate, and, you could argue it's the most unethical dimension of this whole thing. We need to get from her motivation to their execution much, much faster.
So how do you do that? I mean, how do you get that immediate punch without losing the context about why she's so compelled to do this?
I think you have to resequence it and lead with the hard data. You can frame her predictable desire to tour, even in those, tiny rooms under 100 seats, as the notes say.
Yeah.
Frame that as the why, but then pivot immediately to the how, and the how is the family.
Give me a concrete example. What does that look like on the page?
You start with the timeline, the juxtaposition. You immediately point out that the Miranda Sings account posts a tease video after being dead since June 2023, in the exact same week that Colleen holds her comeback shows.
Okay.
And in the same week that Jessica and Christopher post not one, but 2 videos of their very young kids doing Miranda impressions.
The timing is everything.
It is, and then you hit them with the numbers from the material. You use those view metrics, the jump from their usual 80,000 views to 700,000, just like that. That number alone proves this is a strategy.
It's not a coincidence.
Not at all. It's a calculated operation. And that immediately sets the tone for the rest of the piece. The historical stuff about why she needs the tour can be woven in later, but that family coordination, that's your opening hook.
Okay, I see. Focusing on that 700,000 view spike as proof of coordination really shifts the whole center of gravity. And that idea of strategy, it brings up the question of how this is all being presented, which I think leads us right into the second point on tone and style.
Yes, absolutely. Look, the piece is fueled by this righteous anger, and that's important. That passion is the engine here. But
right
now, the analysis often swaps out verifiable evidence for assertions based on personal proximity.
I see what you mean. There are phrases like, I know how she moves, or they idolize that character, and some really inflammatory labels like manically obsessed or the fucking Von Trapp family.
Right.
The observations themselves are sharp, but the language used to describe what's going on inside their heads is very, personalized.
And while that personal experience adds a lot of depth, relying so heavily on that charged emotional language, it risks undermining the authority of the piece.
You think a skeptical reader might tune out?
They might. They could see all these subjective labels and just dismiss it as a personal vendetta instead of an objective critique. So tempering the tone a little bit will actually make the whole thing much more persuasive.
But hold on, if we strip out manically obsessed and those kinds of charged labels, aren't we risking losing that sense of moral outrage that makes the piece so compelling in the first place? How do you keep the passion but also build credibility?
That's the tightrope, right? And the suggestion isn't to remove the passion. It's to channel it more effectively. Shift the focus from diagnosing their internal states, from saying, for sure that someone is manically obsessed, to just observing the concrete, undeniable actions. You already have the data points. Let the situation speak for itself.
So the evidence implies the compulsion, but you don't have to state it like a diagnosis.
Exact. Instead of calling her manically obsessed, just focus on the actions that suggest it. The character gave her the one thing she craves: touring, validation.
Right.
And she clearly sees the toxic gossip train fallout as a joke. I mean, the video is still up. Those are verifiable facts that make your point without needing any subjective label.
Okay. And for the family part?
Same principle. Prioritize the objective critique. The parents are actively choosing to subject their young kids who were not involved before, to an association with a character known for
Incest jokes, abuse jokes.
Exactly. That is an objective, ethical problem that stands on its own. It doesn't need your personal outrage to be outraged. It just is. It moves the whole conversation from how you feel to the actual ethical implication.
That framing does make it more rigorous, and that's especially important because the discussion around the youngest kids, that's the deepest and most urgent part of this whole analysis.
It is. The piece does a great job highlighting that Jessica and Christopher are forcing these kids who weren't even there for the craze of Miranda to do these impressions and opening them up to backlash.
And then there's that crucial question about them maybe moving to Spain.
Yeah, that's speculation about Spain and whether it's connected to new American laws about filming your kids and, revenue sharing.
Right. But that's where it just hangs there. The piece ends that thought by saying the parents are just setting the kids up for online backlash.
And the significance is so much bigger than that. The risk isn't just criticism. The risk is that the parents' actions are financially or legally motivated, at the expense of their own children.
Which brings us to the third point about significance and relevance.
Exact. The submission has this powerful, urgent, ethical question at its core about exploiting the youngest kids, and it just needs to be explored more deeply to really land the so what of it all.
It needs to connect the dots.
We need to take that speculation about Spain and the legal side of things and transform it into a robust, research critique of the family's financial motives.
That feels like a real piece of investigative work. It would elevate this from commentary on bad parenting to a critique of potential financial abuse.
It really would. The author needs to dig into the specific legal protection, these so-called kiddie laws that are evolving in the U.S.
The ones about trust accounts for child performers, revenue sharing, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those are the kinds of regulations that might make a family suddenly aggressively change their content strategy to chase views or even consider relocating internationally to avoid them.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of how these new laws might actually encourage riskier content?
How so?
Well, if new regulations are seen as limiting revenue on typical family vlogging, maybe that changes the risk-reward calculation for the parents. Suddenly, using a controversial but high-performing character becomes more attractive financially.
That's a fantastic point. That link between financial pressure and ethical compromise is what gives this whole argument its weight.
Yes.
So you have to ask the reader, could the financial need to keep those views at 700,000 be directly driving the decision to involve these children in impressions of a character known for inappropriate humor, especially if new laws are closing other revenue streams?
That reframes everything.
It does. It provides a logical, non-emotional reason for why these parents would risk this. It moves the entire argument into the realm of legal and financial accountability, not just bad judgment.
I can see what you're going for here. By deepening that legal and financial context, the author isn't just critiquing one family anymore. They're critiquing the entire system of child exploitation in online content. Okay, let's synthesize these 3 points. The source material is strong, but these adjustments will make it unassailable. So we focused on 3 clear opportunities. First, structure. Rework the argument to lead with the family's coordinated TikTok launch. Use that 700K view spike as your opening hook. Prove the strategy from the jump.
Right.
And second, tone. You need to boost credibility. Rely on the objective data points. The small venues, the toxic gossip train video still being up, the character's known history. Instead of subjective emotional labels, let their actions speak for themselves.
Right.
And third, significance. You have to deepen that investigation into child exploitation. Really connect the dots between the potential move to Spain and the real, verifiable context of evolving American laws on child content creators. That connection between money and morality is the most powerful part of the whole submission. This is really exceptional work. It's full of conviction, full of insight, and by making these structural and tonal changes, the argument will become not just clearer, but so much more persuasive to a much broader audience.
We absolutely encourage you to submit the revised material back to us. We would love to see the next draft, where the family's calculated strategy really takes center stage.